Reading Oliver Twist again, picking up from chapter 13. We're going to see if we can't do this fresh. Um, but we're going to pick it up where we left off earlier today. I am on chapter 13. Some new acquaintances are introduced to the intelligent reader, connected with whom various pleasant matters are related appertaining to his history. Hey, what's up, Fishy? How you doing, buddy? Where's Oliver? Said the furious Jew, rising with a menacing look. Where's the boy? The young thieves eyed their preceptor as if they were alarmed at his violence, and looked uneasily at each other, but they made no reply. What's become of the boy? Said the Jew, seizing the Dodger tightly by the collar and threatening him with horrid implications. Speak out or I'll throttle you. You're a Guy Anderson NSM. I don't know what that is. I think I'm supposed to know what that is. But it's cool though. Mr. Fagin looked so very much in earnest that Charlie Bates, who deemed it prudent in all cases to be on the safe side, and who conceived it by no means improbable that it might be his turn to be throttled second, dropped upon his knees and raised a loud, well-sustained, and continuous roar, something between a mad bull and a speaking trumpet. Will you speak? Thundered the Jew, shaking Dodger so much that his keeping in the big coat at all seemed perfectly miraculous. What a trap you've got him. That's about all, said the Dodger sullenly. Come, let go of me, will you? And swinging himself at one jerk, clean out of the big coat, which was left in the Jew's hands, the Dodger, and seizing up the pot, prepared to hurl it at his assailant's head. Oh my gosh, I'm just getting tripped up right off the bat, but it's okay. But Charlie Bates, at this moment, calling his attention by a perfectly terrific howl, he suddenly altered his destination and flung it full at that young gentleman. Why, what the blazes is in the wind now? Growled a deep voice. You pitch that at me. It's well it's the bear, in not your portage hit me, or I'd have shadowed somebody. I might have known as nobody but an infernal rich, plundering, thundering old Jew could afford to throw away any drink but water, and not that unless he done the river company every quarter. What's it all about, Fagin? Damn me, if my neck anchor ain't lying with beer. Come in, you sneaky warmint. What are you stopping outside for? As if you was ashamed of your master. Come in. That one hurts. Oh, God. The man who growled out these words was a stoutly built fellow of about 35 in a black velveteen coat, very soiled drab breeches, lace-up half boots, and cotton gray stockings, which enclosed a very bulky pair of legs with large swelling calves, the kind of legs that in such a costume always look in an unfinished and incomplete state without a set of feathers to garnish them. He had a brown hat on his head, and a dirty belcher handkerchief round his neck, with the long frayed ends of which he smeared the beer from his face as he spoke, disclosing, when he had done so, a broad, heavy countenance with a beard of 3 days' growth and two scowling eyes, one of which displayed various party-colored symptoms of having recently been damaged in a blow. Come in, you hear me? Growled this engaging ragamuffin. I gotta close my window real quick. I'm gonna be right back. Uno segundo. wondering, since I'm up anyway, if I should share this a couple places or if this is just gonna be for my friend Fishy tonight. I really don't mind either way, but I will definitely share it real quick just because. Oh no. There we go. Oh boy. Hey, let me get this text message real quick since I'm already. Oh no.
Your faith is your money maker, so why would you pair it with cheap plants?
Yes, indeed. I am just wasting time at this point. I wish I could edit this video a little bit after everything has been said and done. Because it is no fun for anyone to just watch me be a fool on here trying to put this on my trying to share this link with people on my phone while I stream on my laptop. But Fishy, you were a heck of a guy, so I appreciate you sticking around. Um, anyway, hopefully this comes out pretty good. I'm gonna pick back up momentarily. Let me just post this and. A white shaggy dog with his face scratched and torn in 20 different places stalked into the room. "What did you come in for?" said the man. "You're getting too proud to own real full company, are you? You're down." This command was accompanied with a kick which sent the animal to the other end of the room. More casual abuse. He appeared well used to it, however, for he coiled himself up in a very corner quietly without uttering a sound. "You don't get treated like that." "No, you don't. You don't get treated like that." Well, hey. Listen. "What are you up to? You treating the boys, you covetous, atrocious, insatiable." You're stepping on things, Phoebe. Is your window closed? Yes. You're stepping on things. Oh, yeah. "What are you up to? You treating your boys, you coveted, avaricious, insatiable old French," said the man, seating himself deliberately. "I wonder why they don't murder you. I wonder if I was them, if I'd been in your place, wonder why they don't murder you. I would if I was them. If I'd been, no, I couldn't have showed you afterwards, though, for you're no fit for nothing but keeping as a curiosity of ugliness in a glass bottle. And I suppose they didn't blow glass bottles large enough." "Hush, hush, Mr. Sykes," said the Jew, trembling. "Don't speak so loud." "None of your mistering," replied the ruffian. "You always mean mischief when you come right. You know my name out with it when the time comes." "Well, well, then, Bill Sykes," said the Jew with abject humility. "You seem rather human, Bill." "Perhaps I am," replied Sykes. "I should think you was rather out of sorts too, unless you mean his little harm when you throw pewter pots about as you do with lab and—" "Are you mad?" said the Jew, catching the man by the sleeve and pointing towards the boys. Mr. Sykes confronted himself with tying an imaginary knot under his left ear and jerking his head over his right shoulder, a piece of dumb shoe which the Jew appeared to understand perfectly. He then, in cant terms with which his whole conversation was plentifully besprinkled, but which would be quite intelligible if they were recommended here, demanded a glass of liquor. "And mind you, don't poison it," said Mr. Sykes, laying his hat upon the table. This was said in jest, but if the speaker could have seen the evil leer with which the Jew bit his pale lip as he turned round to the cupboard, he might have thought the caution not wholly unnecessary, or the wish, at all events, to improve upon the distiller's ingenuity, not very far from the old gentleman's merry heart. Oh boy. After swallowing two or three glassfuls of spirits, Mr. Spikes conceded and Mr. Sykes consented to take some notice of the young gentleman, which gracious act led to a conversation in which the cause and matter of Oliver's capture were circumstantially detailed, with such alliterations and improvements up on the truth as to the Dodger appeared most advisable under the circumstances. I'm afraid, said the Jew, that he might say something with which he'll get us into trouble. It's very likely, returned Sykes with a malicious grin. You'll browse upon Fagin. I'm afraid you'll see, added the Jew, speaking as if he had not noticed the interruption, and regarding the other closely as he did so. I'm afraid that if the game was up to us, it might be up with a good many more, and that if we were to come out rather worse for you than it would for me, my dear. Oh man, I love the little Jewish guy threats. I hate that they have to keep calling him the Jew, and I do think I'm gonna put some music on here. So let's see, what about Bando Guns? What's on the Bando Guns channel? My friends need to post more of their music online so I can actually play it on these things, I guess. Because this is just insane. Guns, Photoshop, cars, beats. Are you making your own beats or are these other people's beats? Oh, he just got promos on here. You don't even got. I get it. I really do. I'm trying to promote you, Bando. You know what? We're going to listen to some reggae. Just because that's a good go to.
I'm so sorry.
How did Curtis Mayfield end up in a. Sometimes these mixes make no sense. But I love Curtis Mayfield, so I am not going to skip that song. Okay. There was a long pause. Every member of respectable courtier appeared plugged in his own reflections, not excepting the dog, who by a certain malicious licking of his lips seemed to be meditating an attack upon the legs of the first gentleman or lady he might encounter in the streets when he went out. Somebody must find out what's been done at the office, said Mr. Sykes in a much lower tone than he had since he came in. The Jew nodded assent. Oh, Mr. Sykes hurts me so bad. If he hasn't preached and he's committed, there's no fear till he comes out again, said Mr. Sykes. Then he must be taken care on. You must get a hold of him somehow. Again the Jew nodded. The prudence of this line of action indeed was obvious, but unfortunate. There was only one very strong objection to its being adopted, and this was that Dodger and Charlie Bates and Fagin and Mr. William Sykes happened one and all to entertain a most violent and deeply rooted antipathy to go anywhere near a police office on any ground or pretext whatsoever. I feel that. How long they might have sat and looked at each other in a state of uncertainty, not the most pleasant of its kind, it is difficult to say. It is not necessary to make any guesses on the subject, however, for the sudden entrance of two young ladies whom Oliver had seen on a former occasion caused the conversation to flow afresh. The very thing, said the Jew. Better go, won't you, my dear? "Whereas?" inquired the young lady. "Only just out of my office, my dear," said the Jew coaxingly. It is, it is due to the young lady to say that she did not positively affirm that she would not, but that she merely expressed an empathetic and earnest desire to be blessed if she would, a polite and delicate evasion of the request, which shews the young lady to have been possessed of that natural good breeding which cannot bear to inflict upon a fellow creature the pain of a direct and pointed refusal. The Jew's countenance fell, and he turned from this young lady, who was gaily, not to say gorgeously attired, in a red gown, green boots. "It's no use a trying it again, Fagin," replied Nancy. "What do you mean by that?" said Mr. Sikes, looking up in a surly manner. "What I say, Bill," replied the lady collectively. "Why, you're just the very person for it," reasoned Mr. Sikes. "Nobody about here knows anything of you." "And I don't want 'em to know either," replied Nancy in the same composed manner. "He's rather more knowing this with me, Will." "She'll go, Fagin," said Sikes. "No, she won't, Fagin," said Nancy. "Yes, she will, Fagin," said Sikes. And Mr. Sikes was right. By a dint of alternate threats, promises, and bribes, the lady in question was ultimately prevailed upon to undertake the commission. Oh, day. Whew. Just try and keep it light because this shit gets depressing. She was not, indeed, withheld by the same considerations as her agreeable friend, for having very recently removed into the neighbourhood of Field Lane from the remote but genteel suburb of Ratcliffe, she was not under the same apprehension of being recognised by any of her numerous acquaintance. Accordingly, with a clean white apron tied over her gown, and her curl papers tucked up under a straw bonnet, both articles of dress being proved from the Jew's inexhaustible stock, Miss Nancy prepared to issue forth on her errand. "Stop a minute, my dear," said the Jew, producing a little covered basket. "Carry that in one hand, it looks more respectable, my dear." "Give us your key to carry with the other one, Fagin," said Sikes. "It looks more for you in Gingervin York." Yes, my dear, so it does," said the Jew, hanging a large street door on a forefinger to the young lady's right hand. "There, very good indeed," said the Jew, rubbing his hands. "Oh, my brother, my poor dear, sweet, innocent little brother!" exclaimed Nancy, bursting into tears and wringing the little basket and the street door key in an agony of distress. "What has become of him? Where have they taken him to? Oh, do have pity and tell me what's been done with the dear boy, gentlemen. Do, gentlemen, if you please, gentlemen." Having uttered these words, most lamentable and heartbroken tone, to the immeasurable delight of the hearers, Miss Nancy paused, winked to the company, nodded smiling round, and disappeared. With these and many other encomiums were being passed on the accomplished Nancy, that the young lady made the best of her way to the police office, whether, notwithstanding a little natural timidity consequent upon walking through the streets alone and unprotected, she arrived in perfect safety shortly afterwards. Entering by the back way, she tapped softly with the key at one of the cell doors and listened. There was no sound within, so she coughed and listened again. Still there was no reply, so she spoke. What is smoke? Oh my God, simple words. It's not even encomiums. committed by Mr. Fang to the House of Correction for 1 month, with the appropriate and amusing remark that since he had so much breath to spare, it would be much more wholesomely expended on the treadmill than in a musical instrument. He made no answer, being occupied in mentally bewailing the loss of the flute, which had been confiscated for the use on the county. So Nancy passed on to the next cell and knocked there. "Well," cried a faint and feeble voice, "is there a little boy here?" inquired Nancy with a preliminary sob. "No," replied the voice. "God forbid." This was a vagrant of 65 who was going to prison for not playing the flute. In other words, for begging on the streets and doing nothing for his livelihood. In the next cell was another man who was going to the same prison for hawking tin saucepans without a license, thereby doing something for his living in defiance of the stamp office. But as neither of these criminals answered to the name of Oliver or knew anything about him, Nancy made straight up to the bluff officer in the second striped waistcoat, and with most piteous wailings and lamentations, rendered more piteous by a prompt and efficient use of the secret door key and the little basket, demanded her own dear brother. "Why haven't got him, my dear?" said the old man. "Where is he?" screamed Nancy in a distracted manner. "Why, the gentleman's got him," replied the officer. "What gentleman? Oh, gracious heavens, what gentleman?" exclaimed Nancy. In reply to this incoherent questioning, the man informed the deeply affected sister that Oliver had been taken ill in the office and discharged in a consequence of a witness having proved the robbery to have been committed by another boy, not in custody, and that the prosecutor had carried him away in an insensible condition to his own residence. Oh my God, residence is tripping me. Other thing concerning which all the informant knew was that it was somewhere in Pentonville, he having heard that word mentioned in the directions to the coachman. In a dreadful state of doubt and uncertainty, the agonized young woman staggered to the gate, and then, exchanging her faltering walk for a good, swift, steady run, returned to the most devious and complicated route she could think of, to the domicile of the Jew. Mr. Bill Sykes no sooner heard the account of the expedition delivered than he very hastily called upon the white dog, and, putting on his hat, expeditiously departed, without devoting any time to the formality of wishing the company good morning. Give it to me one time. Give it to me 2 times. 3 times. Ooh. 4 times. 54. Getting back to it. Dang, I'm almost at the end of the chapter. "We must know where he is, my dears. He must be found," said the Jew, greatly excited. "Charlie do nothing but talk about you. He knows of him. Nancy, my dear, I must have him found. I trust you, my dear. To you and the artful for everything. Stay, added the Jew, unlocking a drawer and shaking hand. "There's money, my dears. I shall shut up shop till tonight. You'll know where to find me. Don't stop here a minute. Not an instant, my dears." With these words, he pushed them from the room and carefully double locking and barring the door behind them, drew from its place of concealment the box which had unintentionally disclosed to Oliver. Then he hastily proceeded to dispose of the watches and jewelry beneath his clothing. A rap at the door startled him in a rap at the door startled him in this occupation. "Who's there?" he cried in a shrill tone. "Me," replied the voice of the Dodger through the keyhole. "What now?" cried the Jew impatiently. Is he to be kidnapped to the other ken, Nancy says? Inquired the Dodger. Yes, repeated the Jew. Whenever she lays hands on him, find him out, that's all. I shall know what to do next, never fear. The boy murmured a reply of intelligence and hurried downstairs after his companions. He is not pitched so far, said the Jew, as he pursued his occupation. If he means to blab among his new friends, we may stop his mouth yet. Whew, you're a guy, and your name is Shaggy. Shaggy. What's up, continue? Scooby-Doo, where are you? There's Shaggy. Isn't it like 3 a.m. there? I swear, you must be like permanently on night shift when this crap's not going on because you were just always up at like 3 and 4 in the morning. But I love it. And I'm halfway tempted to stay up for your 3:30 a.m. scheduled stream if you're actually doing that, D-dubs. But thanks for the like. Anyway, Chapter 14, comprising further particulars of Oliver's stay at Mr. Brownlow's with the remarkable prediction which one Mr. Grimwig uttered concerning him when he went out on an errand. Oh boy. Yes, I'm kind of tired too, and it's only like 10:30 here. But you know, that's what happens when you try to read a book out loud for people like this. I'm glad you're enjoying this, D-dubs. I just came from a live stream where like a lit book reviewer was reading Guards, which is like a whole like dope little fantasy book. And I think she burned through like 12 chapters in 2 hours. And I'm sitting here. This must be like, I just get so easily distracted. This is probably my like 12th or 13th hour reading this. And I'm just now getting to chapter 15 because it takes me almost half an hour to read a chapter. And I just, and that's a good chapter. But anyway, I will continue. Oliver soon recovered from the fainting fit into which Mr. Brownlow's abrupt exclamation had thrown him, and the subject of the picture was carefully avoided both by the old gentleman and Mrs. Bedwin in the conversation that ensued, which indeed bore no reference to Oliver's history or prospects, but was confined to such topics as might amuse him without exciting him. He was still too weak to get up for breakfast, but when he came down into the housekeeper's room the next day, the first act was to cast an eager glance at the wall, in the hope of again looking on the face of the beautiful lady. His expectations were disappointed, however, for the picture had been removed. "Ha ha!" said the housekeeper, watching the direction of Oliver's eyes. "It is gone, you say?" "I say it is, mum," replied Oliver with a sigh. "Why have they taken it away?" "It's been down, child, because Mr. Brownlow said that as it seemed to worry you, perhaps it might you're getting well, you know," rejoined the old lady. "No, oh no, indeed, it didn't worry me, mum," said Oliver. "I like to see it. I quite loved it." Well, said the old lady good-humoredly. "You get well as fast as you ever can, dear, or she'll be hung up again. There, I promise you that. Now let us talk about something else." This was all the information Oliver could obtain about the picture at the time. As the old lady had been so kind to him in his illness, he endeavored to think no more of the subject just then. So he listened attentively to a great many stories she told him about an amiable and handsome daughter of hers who was married to an amiable and handsome man and lived in the country, and about a son who was clerk to a merchant in the West Indies, and who was also such a good young man and wrote such dutiful letters home 4 times a year that it brought tears into her eyes to talk about them. When the old lady had expatiated a long time on the excellences of her children and the merits of her kind, good husband besides, who had been dead and gone, poor dear soul, just 26 years. It was time to have tea, and after tea she began to teach Oliver cribbage, which he learnt as quickly as she could teach, and at which game they played with great interest and gravity until it was time for the invalid to have some warm wine and water with a slice of dry toast and then go cozily to bed. Wow. Oi, Charles Dickens does not know about run-on sentences. That was just wild. Let me see. I just got like 8 alerts and then like something scary on top of it. An emergency alert. And y'all felt like it was worth interrupting Toots in the Maytals, and that's fine. As if it's. Oh, and I'm gonna have to put all these in the description when I'm done too. I just keep digging deeper and deeper for myself. Continue. Oh boy. These were happy days, those of Oliver's recovery. Everything was so quiet and neat and orderly. Everybody so kind and gentle that after the noise and turbulence in the midst of which he had always lived, it seemed like heaven itself, but was no sooner strong enough to put his clothes on properly than Mr. Brownlow caused a complete new suit and a new cap and a new pair of shoes to be provided for him. As Oliver was told that he might do what he liked with the old clothes, he gave them to a servant who had been very kind to him, and asked her to sell them to a Jew, and keep the money for herself. This she very readily did, and as Oliver looked out of the parlor window and saw the Jew roll them up in his bag and walk away, he felt quite delighted to think that they were safely gone, and that there was now no possible danger of this ever being able to wear them again. They were sad rags, to tell the truth, and Oliver had never had a new suit before. Whew. One evening, about a week after the affair of the picture, as he was sitting talking to Mrs. Bedwin, there came a message down from Mr. Brownlow that if Oliver Twist felt pretty well, he should like to see him in his study and talk to him a little while.
Bless us, save us, wash your hands, and let me part your hair nicely for you, child,
said Mrs. Bedwin.
Dear heart alive, if we had known he would have asked for you, we would have put you a clean collar on and made you as smart as a sixpence.
Oliver did as the old lady bade him, and although she lamented grievously meanwhile that there was not even time to cripple the little frill that bordered his shirt collar, he looked so delicate and handsome, despite that important personal advantage, that she went so far as to say, looking at him with great complacency from head to foot, that she really didn't think it would have been possible, on the largest notice, to have made much difference in him for the better. A room quite full of books, with a window looking into some pleasant little gardens. There was a table drawn up before the window at which Mr. Brownlow was seated reading. When he saw Oliver, he pushed the book away from him and told him to come near the table and sit down. Oliver complied, marveling where the people could be found to read such a great number of books as seemed to be written to make the world wiser, which is still a marvel to more experienced people than Oliver Twist every day of their lives.
There are a good many books, are there not, my boy?
Said Mr. Brownlow, observing the curiosity with which Oliver surveyed the shelves that reached from the floor to the ceiling.
A great number, sir,
replied Oliver.
I never saw so many.
You shall read them if you behave well,
said the old gentleman kindly. All right. Oh, boy. just because of all the sirens and stuff, we're going to cut this stream short. Sorry, don't watch continue. But thank you so much for tuning in. Don't watch continue, and Fishy for participating in the conversation. Huge shout out to the Overly Sarcastic group because Overly Sarcastic Productions, because they are absolutely hilarious and very, very insightful, and it's a joy. So once again, I encourage you to like, share, and subscribe. One love. Peace.